Welcome to She Saves Herself, a podcast for emotional abuse survivors who have had enough. Enough gaslighting, manipulation, control, and self-abandonment. Here, we no longer shrink just to survive. I'm your host, Shannon Kaiser, best-selling author of The Self-Love Experiment and founder of She Saves Herself Collective. This show is for those navigating toxic relationships, high-conflict people, and emotional abuse. We speak to empaths, highly sensitive people, and neurodivergents who are sadly disproportionately targeted by abusers. Through honest conversations and trauma-informed tools, you'll find support and self-love strategies to help strengthen and reclaim your voice and power. Here, we move from survival into sovereignty. Let's dive into today's show. Okay, confession time. Okay, before we actually dive into the full episode, I just want to let you know there are some spoilers in this podcast today. We will be talking about Selling Sunset, in particular, the final reunion episode. And this is the number 2 trending TV show on Netflix this week. But just in case you haven't watched it, or if you're not into the show, or if you're waiting to watch the reunion, just know you might want to wait. Or more importantly, it's what's been happening the whole season, so it's not that big of a spoiler. You already know if you've been watching the whole season. And more importantly, I just want to say a little confession time. I have been calling, apparently, Crushelle Rushelle my entire life. And I love her. She's one of my favorite because she is vulnerable and you can tell she has a big heart and she leads with empathy. So I saw that in her. But Rochelle is not Crushelle. So when I recorded this episode, you will hear me say Rochelle quite a bit. Just know my brain, it does that thing, that classic neurodivergent thing that happens all the time when I try to pronounce people's names. And so if you know, you know. And it's just something that happens. My brain auto-corrects reality. So you know what I mean. And hopefully you understand. It is Crushelle. Okay, enjoy the episode When Helping Hurts. What Selling Sunset teaches us about loving someone in a toxic relationship. This is a good one. Hey guys, welcome to the show. I'm really glad you're here today because this topic is really dear to my heart, but it's also very important and something that I think a lot of us can recognize and experience. You know, before we fully dive into the show today, I just want to give a quick kind of just a reference point that this episode is going to discuss some more topics that we don't always go over. Emotional abuse, we'll talk about trauma bonds and relational dynamics and coercive control. And, you know, this kind of information may be triggering for some listeners. And so you just want to, recognize that, take care of yourself. We're going to be referencing a scene and kind of an experience from the show, Selling Sunset, the Netflix reality TV show. And I'm going to use it as a cultural example because as I was watching, it really stood out. And I think it's something we can all relate to and kind of learn from. So this discussion, of course, is educational and it is trauma informed, and it's not intended to criticize or judge the characters on the show. And it's definitely not here to, I'm not a therapist, so I'm not diagnosing. I am a trauma-informed coach, and I bring my perspective from both personal experience as well as my 14 years of personal development and personal growth authoring over 7 books out in the world on how we can feel better and feel more self-love. So I'm kind of coming at today's topic with that lens, but just recognize that you got to take care of yourself. And so if you need to pause or step away, please do, but also know that with She Saves Herself, everything I do is here to educate, empower, and inspire you. So I'm hoping you understand that as we go through today's episode, it's about recognizing patterns. And so we can all make conscious choices that are healthier for ourselves and healthier for those we love. And really, it's about reclaiming our emotional freedom. So let's dive in. How many of you guys watch Selling Sunset? How many of you ladies dive into the show? I must admit, it is a Netflix reality TV show. I think they're in their 9th season, maybe something like that. And I just binge watched it. It just came out last week. And of course, I love the show. It's one of the few forms of drama that I allow in my life now. It is one of my guilty pleasures. I love watching reality shows in part because it's an easy escape. The brain can kind of just tune out, but also I love dissecting them from a place of psychology and trauma informed awareness. Because if you look at these as characters or archetypes, you can start to see patterns. And so today I wanted to really bring attention to something that really is important because I think all of us, no matter what side you're on, can relate. Have you ever loved someone, or more importantly, if you've ever loved someone who's in a controlling or emotionally abusive or even physically abusive relationship? You know how heartbreaking it is. You can see the harm that the person's doing to them, and you care so much about your friend and you want to help. And yet, every time you try to help or every time you are there, it seems to push them further away, or it either causes more damage to you and your mental health because there's no change, and it gets frustrating and exhausting. I definitely understand. But then there's the flip side where you could be in a relationship with someone you love so much, and it's unlike any relationship you've ever had. And you feel this is different. And your friends and family don't like that person, and they make it a point to tell you how bad that person is for you, or they just really make it a point to kind of berate you when you bring up that person. And so you know very clear that you don't feel supported. And what happens in this dynamic is you feel more blame. You feel like you're being shamed. This isn't such an important, I was going to say extremely and important together. That's why that was like, well, extremely important. I don't know if we can make a word up. It's important topic. And it's also dear to my heart because I have been on both sides of this. A few years ago, I was in a relationship and getting to know someone who felt very different than anyone else I had ever met on the planet ever. Almost 4 decades into my life, I was like, this is the one. And I could really relate to what was happening on Selling Sunset because, Selling Sunset, when I was watching it this weekend, it took me back to that relationship because I had some friends who couldn't understand, and they could see very clearly that this person wasn't healthy for me, but I was so in it. I didn't recognize that the person was gaslighting. I didn't even know what that was. I didn't know they were love bombing. At the time, I didn't know what that was. And maybe if you're listening, maybe you don't know what that is, or maybe you do. Love bombing is, it's when they give you a lot of attention at the beginning of a relationship or lavish you with, basically the way I look at love bombing is you get your needs met. For me, I grew up, not feeling seen or understood. So this person just held space for me, and it felt like I was seen for the first time in my life. That's all I needed to be love bombed. Other people need lots of gifts, and maybe their love language is, gifts, and other people, the person who is love bombing will find out what your need is and give it to you to the extreme. And then they pull it away. And when they pull away, there's this incredible, intense sensation within you if you haven't healed the part of you that has an abandonment wound or a rejection wound or that pick me kind of I need to be chosen, or you romanticize relationships, it can feel like death. There's a part of you like, what did I do wrong? And so you pull closer, and then they come back in, or they don't. They come back in at a time and they love bomb you again. And it's this intermediate reinforcement. It's a very, very strategic and common master manipulator technique. Now, if you're in a relationship with someone who's doing that and you don't know, you're just trying to build connection, you can't see what maybe your friends see because you're in love, or at least you're in a place where you're feeling something you've never felt before. And so that's what we're talking about today. I'm going to actually take both sides of this because I have been on both sides. When I was in that relationship, I remember I needed a friend, and I actually lost friends. 2 of my bestest friends, I lost, and they're not in my life anymore. And I'm not saying it's because of that relationship, but it's because of the dynamics. They would show up for me in ways they thought were best. And that would be either berating me on my choices or kind of, it felt like kicking me when I was down. And when I tried to bring that to their attention, some of the time they would really lash back and say, I can't believe that you think that I haven't been there for you. That's all I've been doing. And I felt still that would kick me down even more because all I needed was love. All I needed was someone to just be there and not judge me. And when they were attacking the relationship or my choices, it felt like I was being judged. And so we have to look at this from a nuanced lens. And what I'm going to bring in today is how you can help both yourself, or if you're in a relationship, help yourself, but also if you're in a relationship with a friend who's going through something like this, how you can help without it hurting. And so we're going to be talking about Selling Sunset. If you've seen Selling Sunset, let me know. Leave a comment and share. As I said, this show is one of my guilty pleasures. And there's two characters in particular, Rochelle and Emma, who have been best friends for several seasons. But this recent season, there's been a shift. And Emma is in a relationship with many of the cast members who say is clearly a toxic relationship, is the word they use. And Emma even says that there's a lot of push pull. I'm in a relationship with someone who, it's different. He loves me and I want to be with someone who loves me and cares for me. And he wants the things that I do, like a family. And she keeps pointing to that. And that's her reference point. I finally found someone who wants the things that I want. And a lot of the cast members, especially her best friend, Rochelle, can't stand this. And so that's what I think we need to talk about today. So I'll just play the quick clip for you so you can kind of get a starting point of where we're at.
No action I ever made was out of care and love for you. And I just want you to be happy and to be cared for by somebody that knows how to treat you. And I'm happy to step back as I have, but I just wanted to say that that's the only place that all of this came from.
So this is Rochelle kind of talking on the reunion show after they've kind of dissolved the relationship, because of course the reunion show is after the show airs. Emma's still kind of off and on with this person, this man who many of her friends don't like. But through the partnership, Rochelle kept showing her disdain, her dislike. You deserve better. I don't think he's the right one for you. And if you're with a person that you love and your friend is telling you that, it causes a lot more shame. You start to feel blame and you start to feel like, oh my gosh, I'm not being supported. And all you need is support in that moment. And Rochelle was really saying, I'm coming from a place of love, like all that is. But I think it's important for a moment to talk about that because women, especially, we tend to equate helping with fixing. I know one of my best friends, we talked about a year after, we kind of were in no contact, and she came back and she apologized. And it was really wonderful for us to connect again because I felt betrayed and hurt when she just abandoned me when I needed her most. That's exactly what it felt like. But when we came back, she said, I was just trying to help you. I was trying to save you from yourself. And that hit because I think a lot of us, we have that I want to save, fix, help, especially when that's what our culture tells us. And we carry the burden of saving others. And so when your best friend is literally going down in front of you, it can be really hard. But if you are the person who is in the relationship, it doesn't feel like you're going down. It feels like you are trying to find the love that you found in the beginning of the relationship and you're holding on with hope. Hope is your strategy. So there's a nuance there. And then we get into what Emma says. So Emma, of course, is the one who's in the relationship and she shares that it's on and off, hot and cold. But she's like, this is what happens. Like, I'm in a relationship. This is my journey and what I need. And so I think it's important to kind of reference. And so here's where we are with what Emma shares.
I mean, saying that, obviously there was a time when I was really struggling in the relationship and I felt like I was being kicked when I was down. For you to be in a relationship like that I at least know is so far left of how you should be treated, to then say I was the one kicking you while you were down when I have been the one to pick you up every time I was there. Every time you called me, you made me worry so much about you.
This is important to kind of look at. I wanted to share this too, because both sides, what we're seeing here is two women who are very hurt. I know in my particular life, when I went through this, I was so hurt that my friends couldn't be there for me in the way that I needed. And they thought I'm being there for her by telling her that this person is not right, or I'm being there for her by telling her all of the things that she's doing wrong in her life. And it just hurt more. And so we have what is really a dynamic of two people who are trying to do the best they can. And this is, again, we're using this as a reference because I think all of us can relate when someone you love is hurting. And when you are in love and hurting because of someone you love, there's a dynamic that is nuanced. And when we come at it by attacking the other person from where it feels like an attack, when you're in Emma's position here, as she said, I felt like I was kicked when I was down. When you are coming at it, we have to recognize that we're looking at it through our own lens. We all see the world the way we are, not exactly how the world really is. And something, that's really important to recognize is that both people are coming from a place of love, but they're getting and kind of the wires are crossed because they each need something different. Emma's really looking for, and I'm going to use that as an example, of course, because you can put yourself in either point of view if you've been on either side of the table here. She's looking for this, I need support. I just want someone to be here for me. That's it. Just be here for me, which means non-judgmental, which means don't try to fix me. Isn't that what we all want? I mean, think of how often you've reached out to someone and they just automatically go into advice mode. They automatically go into, I'm going to save, fix, help. And all you need is to just be witnessed. All you need is to just be held. So that is something we can all do more of, is just listen and just be held in the space of love for those that we care about. Because the truth is, we are all going through our own lessons. And I recognize this too in my friendships now, when someone is very clearly involved in a bonded relationship that is toxic. I can see it. I can see the type of person they're with. Maybe it's a narcissistic person or someone who is already displaying gaslighting or coercive controlling, really kind of the little things that they do, the behaviors that look like love bombing, the pulling away, the push-pull. And instead of kind of going at my friend, I have been loving my friends through it. I'm in a place now where I've been on both sides and I've healed, and that's a result of the healing. And I let them know that I'm here for them. And in that space, I've seen them come to the realizations faster that this person's not for me, because I'm loving them for who they are. And I think there's something important to recognize, that what Rochelle was going through is, she said, I love you, but I can't see you do this to yourself. And that becomes the next level of, how do we have boundaries with people who are harming themselves? So we can hear what they say here as well. This is Rochelle responding again.
In my life, I have had to deal with people that keep putting themselves in positions where they are addicted to something or whatever, and for whatever reason they keep putting themselves back in a position to be hurt by the thing that is hurting them. I have to take a step back because I can no longer enable somebody or watch them hurt themselves. I have to love you from afar. And I haven't always done that. I haven't always done that right, but I tried, and I tried really hard.
There's a couple things here from a trauma-informed lens that I want to share. She's coming from a place, you can hear, of deep care for her friend. That was Rochelle talking back to Emma. But there's a couple things she said that are really important to recognize. She said, I've had to deal. It's almost like she feels like she's had to deal and control and try to fix, save, help. I've had to deal with people for whatever reason, have put themselves back in a position to get hurt. I think this is something that is so important for us to look at, because what this shows is, if somebody is feeling that, And I know this is what my friends were going through when I was just like in these relationships and feeling like I was in the love of my life. And they could so clearly see that this person was basically brainwashing me with their mind games and their tactics of manipulation. And even when you watch the reunion episode, sorry if I'm giving some spoiler alerts here, but you'll see. It's throughout the whole season of the season 9 of Selling Sunset as well. What I'm sharing here are clips from the reunion episode. What you notice is that there's this intense focus on who's right, right? But what we're really missing is that love and support and care. And what you can see is someone has clearly been through it and someone who has not. When Rochelle says things like, for whatever reason, people keep going back, whatever reason means that she hasn't actually experienced it. And I'm not saying this about her, just in general, right? But what happens when you are in relationships like this, it is incredibly manipulative. And even Chelsea, another cast member, said, you are in an emotional relationship. Emma, you don't realize, but you're being brainwashed. And she just point out said that. For someone like Emma to hear that while she's in the relationship, it can cause more damage. I know everyone's operating and trying to do the best they can, but if you go straight at your friend and say, you are being brainwashed, you're being gaslit, this person is taking advantage of you, they're trying to take all your money, whatever you're telling them, they can't hear you. They hear you, but what they hear is my friend's not supporting me. I'm not loved. I am being shamed for my choices. My friend doesn't trust me enough to make the choices that are right for me. And it absolutely causes more of a rift. So what's happening in these types of relationships is there's coercive control, there's psychological manipulation, there's mind games, there's incredible amounts of tactics that pull people into a trauma bond. And they are trauma bonded relationships. And a trauma bond is really when you're relating to someone through a wound of yourself, but more importantly, what happens. And I think what's really happening in this relationship that we see kind of demonstrated throughout season 9 with Emma and her person that everyone is saying he's a love bomber, he's a gaslighter, is limerence. And limerence is this involuntary kind of a state of romantic obsession that happens. And that's what I was in with this person. I didn't recognize it was limerence because I had finally felt like, oh my gosh, someone finally sees me. They value me for my inner world. They're not just looking at what's on the outside, or they're not just trying to see what they can get, which is actually what that person was doing in the end. But limerence is this kind of focus, your mind and body goes into a hyper intense state of a obsession, almost like a romantic, like this person could be the one. It's an infatuation with another person. And it often happens the less they have contact with you, and that's what a lot of these abusers know. And these coercive, controlling men and women, of course, who do this, they will come in and know that they can play off of that. And so if you have an abandonment wound or a rejection wound, and what we often see is somebody who grows up in an environment and in a household where love is not given freely or it's actually conditional. If you grew up in a household where your needs weren't met emotionally, or you didn't feel love, or you specifically felt neglected, or you were maybe you were abandoned by a parent, or a parent fell, into abusive tactics or addiction, and they were there one day and the next is deep in their addiction. Or if somebody actually died or passed away when you were younger and you were abandoned by a parent, it can create this heightened sense of a romantic kind of infatuation. There's actually studies that have been done where people who grow up in households like this, they are neglected and there's this intense abandonment wound within them. And so they are definitely prone to fantasy. And when you get into a relationship with someone who is projecting that fantasy, you are trauma bonded. And so when people say, for whatever reason, you go back, I don't even know why. It's why did you stay so long is not the question we should be asking. It's a trauma bonded, psychological, and also somatic experience that happens in your body. So we can't be blaming other people for being in this. We need to be looking at the abusers who keep pulling us in through these emotional tactics that are psychologically designed to get you into a trauma bond because they believe that's how I can control you. That's how I can be in this dynamics. It's a very unhealthy situation, and everyone in this type of relationship is operating from a wound, whether you're in the person who is being manipulated or the person manipulating. So what we really want to talk about is how our culture shapes this, because here I am talking about a show, right? Netflix, and this wildly successful millions. I think it's number 2 this week on Netflix shows. It's millions of people tune in. So what is our culture teaching us about this? Really, there's this perceptions of love, control, and self-worth are all wrapped up into pop culture. And so it's so important to recognize what we're watching and taking in. A lot of the times these shows are really kind of teaching us, here we are talking about a show and it looks like, oh, it's friendship drama. Yeah, that's what we're watching. Makes for a great reality TV show. But what we're really seeing is dynamics of coercive control, abuse, and friendship betrayal. So how do we move through this? If you have a friend who is in a coercive controlling relationship, or you feel that they are being emotionally abused, it is so important to first regulate yourself first. If you see someone in danger, the protective person in you, that protective instinct, especially I want to protect my friend. And maybe you've gone through a life where you felt like everyone is out to get you too, and you know and can recognize the signs, like you are wicked smart with recognizing it. But we have to recognize that our friends and every other person on the planet has their own soul lessons. And so if you're coming at them to kind of protect them from their own soul lessons, you're actually doing a disservice, because no amount of trying to save, fix, or help them is going to prevent them from the soul path that they're supposed to be on. And every soul, their soul, is also connected to the person that they are in the relationship with. That person also has soul lessons to learn. And so everybody involved has lessons to learn. And maybe the lesson is, I can't control others, but I can control how I respond or react. And earlier in the reunion show, when they were talking about this and going back and forth, Amanda and Chelsea, 2 of the other characters, kind of stepped in and said some really important things. And I think Amanda said something that was so important. And she said, I just want to say something. I was involved in a very emotional relationship, emotionally abusive relationship as well. And Mary, who's another cast member, is my best friend. And she couldn't be around him. And Mary chimed in right away and said, absolutely, I couldn't go over to her house anymore, but I was always there for my friend. I never left Amanda. And I look back on my relationships with the best friends that I lost, because I felt so betrayed when I felt like Emma, they kicked me when I was down. I was at my lowest point and just needed friends. And they said, you're making stupid choices. I can't be around you. And then they came back later saying, oh, all is well. And I was still so hurt, because when I needed them most, the next 6 months of my life, they were gone. They abandoned me. And so I think what we're looking at is the abandonment wound here is being revved up in everybody. But what Mary did is said, I was never, ever left my friend. I was there by her side. So if you can find a way to regulate yourself and maybe put boundaries around not being around the person who you feel is unsafe for you and your friend, this is a place to start. And we often have to look at prioritizing our emotional safety over logic. If you're in a situation where someone is trauma bonded and you now recognize, okay, they are definitely trauma bonded, that person is operating from survival mode. And they're not operating from reason. So when you come at them and try to say you deserve better, or that person is so stupid, or I can't believe they said that, or gosh, you're ruining your life, they really can't hear you. They're in such survival because the self-worth and the amount of gaslighting that happens in those types of relationships is just impacted them on so many levels. So instead, you could mirror the reality with empathy. And this is what I did with my friends and what I do now when I see them in these very abusive situations. I can see how painful this is for you, and I can see how hard it's become. You don't deserve to feel this way, but I understand that you are torn. I'm here for you. And what do you need? Ask them. What do you need? This language helps validate them and their love and their pain. This helps build trust, and it doesn't make them feel alienated or like they are really the one who is being dumb, which is what Emma alluded to. She said, now I just feel like she's, poking at me, and it's no longer about him. And I think this is really important. So again, if you have a friend and you feel like you want to help them, but it's hurting yourself, you can also recognize that you can ask permission before offering advice. And that's what I start doing now too, of course. As a trauma-informed coach and personal development author, this is like number one. I say, do you want to just me to hold space for you? Do you want a hug? Or you tell me what you want. And I always say, would you like some advice? And usually when you position it that way, they will hold space and say, well, yeah, I do. I want your perspective. And even my perspective is never coming at that person, well, you deserve better and this and that, even though I know that they do, right? You can't meet someone. You have to meet them where they are. I offer advice from a place of empathy and compassion, a place that says, I know you're doing the best you can. And I pull it back, of course, and just say, what does healthy love look like to you? And then they become their own sovereign person who can make choices. You're no longer trying to control their life or trying to dictate how they live their life. You're giving them permission to ask the questions. I have a guru and a life coach, an amazing friend who's been such a helpful guide for me in my life. And when I was in this relationship, crying and trying to figure out what was happening and desperate to be like, I don't understand the push and pull. It feels different than anything I've felt. Here he is. He's not talking to me again. I feel like he's giving me the silent treatment. I don't even know why. I feel like I did something wrong, all the stuff. And my loving friend, my loving best guru, partner, friend through life, if you will, my soul guide, he just very calmly said, well, do you respect yourself? And that shocked me. I was like, what? Yeah, of course I do. I practice self-care and self-love. I write books on self-love, but that stuck with me. Who I am today versus who I was 3 years ago and even 10 years ago and, 15 years ago, every relationship I've been in, there was not enough self-respect. I was putting all of my energy into trying to make sure that I was lovable for the other person. And they knew that, and they took advantage of it. And so self-respect looks like, is this how I would want my daughter to be treated? Is this how I would want my best friend to be treated? And I started to recognize that the things this person was doing in my life was actually not healthy at all. I was being so disrespected, and I didn't even know. I was on a date with the person. We were on a date, and it was lovely. And the person said in the beginning, at the start of our date, I'm so sorry I disrespected you the first night we met. I felt like, it was disrespectful. We had kind of moved into a very passionate experience the first night. Yep, I'm going there. I'm saying it out loud. Now, I'm not really one to do that, but I felt so incredibly attracted to this person. I was like, oh my God, every chakra's lit up here. What's going on? This is my person. Let's go for it. And, of course, there's intense passion. All the serotonin and oxytocin is rushing through your body. So several weeks later, reflecting back on that, starting the conversation by saying, I'm sorry I disrespected you, it caught me off guard because I never thought, kissing and being with someone you care about is disrespectful. But then by that very end of that date, that same date, he left with another woman who he claimed and said was his best friend, but clearly other stuff was going on. And it was just looking back, a big triangulation attempt to degrade, devalue, disrespect me, humiliate me. You don't leave a date with someone you say you care about with another person and not tell them until that person shows up mid-date. highly disrespectful and caused a lot of jealousy from the other person that turned into this really not good situation. So for someone to say they care about you and put you in a situation with someone who is maybe not emotionally in a safe place, that's also disrespect. But I remember talking to my best friend at the time after and sharing what happened. And she and both my other best friend that I'm no longer talking to, which is sad. I love them very much. But, things happen and here we are. She was like, that is so disrespectful. And I remember thinking, wait, what? I didn't even recognize because I was so abused and worn in that relationship and every relationship prior that had conditioned me to be in that a person showing up, starting the date by planting the seed that I disrespected you and then intentionally leaving mid-date early with another woman, doesn't matter what the reason was, who he said was his friend, but clearly wasn't. That's not disrespectful. I don't know. But now I see it as disrespect. But then I couldn't. And that's where Emma is. She can't see outside of herself because she's in it. There is so much abuse that happens in these relationships. And so when you are in this type of situation, the best thing to do is model self-worth. If my friends, and my friend by gently probing, hun, Shannon, that actually is disrespect. Yeah, he totally disrespected you. I can't believe he did that. That is gently acknowledging the truth. It's also modeling self-worth by saying, I wouldn't let that happen to me. But it's not saying, oh my God, I can't believe you didn't notice that was so disrespectful and put it back on me. You see the nuance and you see the difference. So there's some things you can do if you are actually in a relationship like this and you love the person and you're wondering why there's so much push-pull and why it feels so hard that other people can't understand. The first thing you want to do is just honor the love that you do have and also really understand that your confusion is also warranted. You can love someone and still recognize that they're unhealthy for you. Both can exist. These two truths can absolutely be in the same sentence together. So self-compassion is really number one for you. I had to really look at myself and be, wow, why? The thing I really realized is, why did I not think that was disrespectful? I had to actually call the person and have a conversation to say, hey, that was disrespectful, like 3 weeks later, right? And even that person knew very well that it was disrespectful, but they played it off because that's part of the coercive controlling dynamic. They pull you in and they want to just kind of get that attention. And for you to come back, it was all calculated. It was all part of the mind games. So recognize I can still love this person, but they're hurting me. And in that acceptance, you can then recognize what's happening in your nervous system. If you're in a relationship like this, and both, whether you're supporting a friend, our nervous system is always talking to us. When you're involved with coercive controlling situations and people, it trains your body to equate intensity with love. I even talked to my best friend at the time. I was involved in this. I'm like, oh, it's so intense. I've never had so much chemistry. And she's like, man, we had this conversation along the lines of, she's like, what if there wasn't that? And it just felt kind of like, like more normal and it wasn't so high and low. And I was like, oh my gosh, that'd be so boring. Now that is all I want because I'm healthy and in a place where it's not boring, it's healthy love. If you are equating love with this intense passion, and you can still have intense passion with healthy love, by the way, it is usually a form of coercive control, trauma bond, gaslighting, and there's limerence involved. So pay attention to what your body's doing. Do you have a racing heart around them? I know that with this particular person, we went in and out, that's what they do. They come in your life and out of your life, come in your life, out of life, back and forth. And, you go no contact, come back. Every time I saw this person over the kind of 3-year unfolding of the relationship, I would cry. I literally would cry, or my body would be sweating so much. I'm laughing because, if you're trying to, be in a relationship or get involved with someone and you're sweating or crying, it's not a good look. But I couldn't control it. These were my nervous system screaming at me. I was being dysregulated. It was not love. It was basically saying, holy crap, this person is dangerous. He's trying to control you. You are being manipulated. So I recognize that. And now any sign of sweating around someone is like, oh, you're not safe for me. Gotta go. Any sign of just crying just because I'm in their space. A lot of the tears were relief though. I was so happy he was back in my life because he had pulled away. This is part of the trauma bond. This is part of the abandonment wound. This is part of the rejection. As soon as I healed those pieces of me, this person became obsolete. They became so unattractive to me because I realized they were only playing off of the parts of me that were wounded to keep them in my life, which isn't healthy at all. So recognize what's going on in your life. Healthy love doesn't have to hurt, and unhealthy love doesn't have to hurt. But healthy love, when you love a friend so much, it feels healthy. That doesn't have to hurt. So as we move forward, it's important to just kind of look at that. And I just wanted to bring attention to this and really kind of to take the conversation to a little bit deeper of a place. We can have compassion for both people, both Emma and Rochelle and everybody involved on the show, but also you can have compassion for your friend and you can have compassion for the person they're in the relationship for and yourself while not causing more harm. The most important thing here is to recognize that we don't have to criticize or take things personally. We can recognize that we're all doing the best we can. And it is important to feel safe. And if you're in relationships, any type of relationship where you don't feel safe, that is something you want to look at. And you want to find safe outlets. You want to find someone who is safe, especially if you're in a coercive, controlling relationship and your friends can't be there for you because they've put up boundaries to protect themselves because they don't want to get more involved. It's important to recognize your worth and your own self-agency. I deserve better. I don't deserve this. Am I being disrespected? Why can't I see that this is disrespect? What within me is unhealed from childhood? And that's a whole nother episode and a lot of the work we do here at She Saves Herself. So you can look and work with that. I also have my enrollment is open for my one-on-one self-embodiment mentorship. This is a beautiful program that helps you work through everything we've talked about today in a compassionate, trauma-informed, really beautiful lens. I have one session available, which is the radical self-love session. We can work together through 3 months, 6 months, or the full year. I have clients in these programs right now who it is amazing. It is amazing to hear what is happening just after one session, just 2 sessions. Things like, I have never felt so connected to myself. Another one just last week, she said, oh my God, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm pretty amazing. And I have given away my power and I deserve the bare minimum to be treated with the same love that I so freely give to others. Yes, 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 yes. It is about us coming together. And that's one of the most important things, to find a safe place where you can come together with someone who is non-judgmental and will be there with you through the healing. I hope that you enjoyed this show today. This is such a beautiful topic for us to dive deeper into because no matter where you are on your journey, you probably can relate. And I think it's important to note, just from as we close out the session, that our culture and even society in general really romanticizes this kind of push-pull dynamic and this love bombing style. You know, we see shows like with Joe Goldberg, I think his name is, and he's, love bombing and obsessively loving his partners. And he represents every type of coercive, controlling, dominating, tyrant, narcissistic, sociopathic person on the planet. He becomes obsessive with his lovers and basically literally destroys anything that gets in the way of his narrative. I have unfortunately been involved with somebody like that. And anything that got in the way of what they thought was best for me in my life or what the role they saw me in, they tried to destroy. And it is situations and education like this that helped me through. And it is places like She Saves Herself and programs. And I worked with a trauma therapist, and I started working with my coach, and the coach who said, and helped me realize, hey, hun, you deserve more respect. You have to start with yourself. So no matter where we are, we have to look at not romanticizing these predators. And we also have to look at friends that get caught in these predator situations or abusive situations or get love bombed. Everyone is on their own journey. And what we can do is protect ourselves, put up boundaries, but also be there with love if you can, because we all need more love. So thank you for joining us for She Saves Herself. And I would absolutely love to hear in the comments. First and foremost, if you loved this show, enjoyed it, found it helpful, please send it to anyone you know who could find value. But I want to know in the comments if you've seen patterns of manipulation in the media. And, do you see it in your real life? How does it kind of show up in your real life? Have you noticed ever, maybe you watch Selling Sunset as well, or any of the reality shows right now, and notice how the controlling behavior gets romanticized. I'd love to hear in the comments your thoughts. Thanks again for joining. It's been great to be here with you. And thanks, you always deserve the love and attention that you so freely give to others. Until next time. Thanks so much for tuning in to She Saves Herself podcast. If this episode moved you, make sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who needs it. If you have a question for the show, visit shesavesherself.org and send it in through the contact page. I'd love to hear from you. And while you're there, you can go to donate and you can help the cause and help support emotional abuse survivors on their healing journey. Until next time, keep going and growing. And remember, you are your own rescue and you are so worth it.